All right, guys, welcome back into another DFS video. My name is Polzin with 9 to 5 Sports. Going to be getting into a little bit different of a video. Going to be getting into part of my content creator series here, breaking down some questions that some people have had. I've been growing a lot recently, and it's kind of attracted some attention from other content creators trying to figure out just life in content creation. So with that, some people had some questions that I want to answer. One person reached out to me with 4 really awesome questions that I thought would make for great content. So I'm just going to answer those questions for you guys. They're questions that I assume a lot of you would have. Even if you're not a content creator, it's just kind of fun information about me and about kind of the daily fantasy sports industry as well. So question number 1, I assume with your content and work you put out, this is your full-time job. Is this true? I'm curious in the comment section below, like, what do you guys think? Do you think it's my full-time job or not? I'm very curious about that. I'll give you guys 5 seconds. Okay. Now that you got those in there, yes and no. The answer is yes and no. So I actually am working 3 jobs right now. 9 to 5, I do consider a full-time job. I have a typical 9 to 5 job. Okay. And then I would consider 9 to 5 sports still a full-time job. So I'm pretty much working 2 full-time jobs. And in like corporate America, let's just be honest, guys, you do have a lot of downtime in there. Maybe you're working 25 hours a week, 30 hours a week. In that spare time, I also do my 9 to 5 stuff. It kind of double dips the chip. I do have it down to the point now in which a lot of the data that I'm pulling in works off of itself. So there's not as much data scraping going in, which is huge. Okay. And then I do have a part-time job currently this fall. So technically working 3 jobs. The biggest takeaway from that is time. Okay. You always have enough time to do the stuff that you want to, but it's all about time management, okay? And prioritizing your time correctly. And with that, you're gonna have to set expectations about your content, okay? You're gonna have to nail the content that you put out there. So don't overextend yourself too much because time is valuable, okay? You need to have time to put out content, figure out what you want to put out there and nail that specific content to start off with. Question number 2, how did you grow your page in the beginning? Any tips? So kind of the background story about 9 to 5 Sports is that it actually started out on Twitter as Sit Start Polls. This is back when I was in college. It's a funny story. I was working at Hardee's through college a little bit. I had played football for a year. At college, decided I didn't want to do that. So then I had to start paying for college my own way. And I was working at Hardee's and I saw that Twitter had actually came up. I was a marketing major as well. I saw that Twitter had came out with a polling system on Twitter. And I'm like, man, this is great. This is a huge niche. And that is kind of the biggest thing I want to put out there is that I found a niche that worked really well. And I remember like it was a Thursday night. I'm working and I'm like, hey, I have a question about 2 tight end plays. Like, because both tight ends were available. They're both quality streamers. I created the account Sit Start Polls and I put out the question there. Hey, who is the top tight end play on this or which tight end is going to score the most points? It got about like, I don't know, 100 votes or something, which was pretty good at the time. And it really just grew from there. That's where half of my followers on Twitter came from. That started a video series that we started to do preseason DFS coverage the next year.
Sit Start Polls number 5.
And from there, it kind of just grew into what it is today. But it really started with that niche. And that is the biggest thing I want to point out is that is how you grow your page, is finding a niche and nailing that niche. Like for me, it was that the fantasy football community there, okay? Putting out questions that people were intrigued by. An injury came up, I would be one of the first accounts to put that poll out there. Like, oh, hey, Dalvin Cook is injured. Which Minnesota Vikings player benefits the most? Alexander Madison, Justin Jefferson, or Adam Thielen? You know, stuff like that. Or, hey, who was the top waiver wire ad of this season? And then obviously the Sit Start Polls thing. A lot of people on Sunday mornings and Saturday nights started to put in their questions. And so I could be like, follow request. Who should he start? Blank, 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 or blank in a PPR. People loved it. People enjoyed it. It was a give and take kind of relationship as well, which is huge. Then obviously the preseason NFL DFS coverage, I was one of the first ones to cover that. And I was talking about like nailing your niche. I was one of the few people doing that, and I was able to capitalize on that a little bit. So like any tips though, this guy has a great question here. Like how would you grow your page, or how did I grow my page in the beginning? Any tips? He's already doing one of the things that I would suggest. Reaching out to other content creators, figuring out where they were successful. That is huge, okay? And honestly, at the start, you're going to want to find your favorite content creators, whether that be in fantasy sports or elsewhere on that specific platform, Twitter, YouTube. If it's a blog. Figure out kind of what makes them successful, what you like about them. And I don't want to say copy them. I mean, you can try to copy them, but don't like put the copy content out there. Like if you want to try to copy a like YouTube thumbnail or a content piece, see if that's even possible. See if you can even do that. See if you have that talent. Okay. And then obviously make it your own if you actually want to put it out into the world. Okay. That would be a big tip of mine. And then like another tip as well. It's like when I started out, the industry was a lot different. There weren't as many individual content creators such as myself. Okay. It was just like a few big companies and that was it. Nowadays, there's so many people like me that is just like an individual doing stuff to the point in which maybe a great way to start to grow nowadays would be to reach out to someone, be like, hey, I like your work that you do. Is there any way that I can help you out to lighten your load? Once again, going back to that time management, every content creator has some sort of time constraint. If you can help them out in that sense, alleviate some of that time stress, that'd be huge. And that'd be a good way to get your foot into somewhere. All right. Question number 3. What platform did you build your model and databases on? So he's asking this. I kind of have 3 different databases. My main one is golf. Okay. A lot of my database stuff comes directly from that specific sport. Like PGA comes from the PGA Tour. NFL comes from NFL.com. NBA comes from NBA. Now, there are other websites out there that are extremely useful. Like Sports Reference is huge for NFL and NBA. It's a great kind of free website out there in which kind of already curates a little bit of the data for DFS players. So you can take a look at it that way. But the biggest answer to that question is like for PGA, it is a database that I have built up myself. Okay. And that's part of the niche part. I have data in there that like no one else has. And that's kind of what makes the data unique as well. And I've been able to grow it and put out certain data points that other people don't have. And that's kind of where I like it. Now, there are options out there for you guys to buy data as well, in which if you want to do that, message me. I know the other ones out there, but part of like my whole thing with like database and whatnot, I want to keep the price down for members and stuff. So I keep it in-house. Yes, going back to time management, when I was starting out doing that, it ate up a lot of time. Okay, it took a lot of time to get it where it's at today. So that's the difficult part. And then question number 4. Question number 4 is probably my favorite question here. It's, is there anything you would do differently if you were starting out from scratch? Like, of course, there's a lot of stuff I would do differently. A ton of stuff. Man, like I don't even know where to start. An obvious one I think would be the sit start pulls thing. I remember I was working my new job out of college. I had sit start polls rolling. It was active. The community was growing. Like I said, about half of my Twitter followers came from there. Probably maybe 500 subscribers from YouTube came from there. I had some sort of brand image within the community for sit start polls. Okay. And then I got the bright idea to make 9 to 5 sports. I wanted to make my own thing. I wanted to grow within the industry. I wanted to have really my own brand and something I could build upon, not just sit start polls. I wanted to have, a company, a name, something years down the line I could build. And that was definitely a mistake looking back. It was a huge mistake. And that really set me back probably a year, maybe a year and a half. Okay. That was dumb. Like if I could go back, like sit start polls was my lifeline for quite a while. Okay. And I just went like, all right, we're taking a hard right. And that was definitely a mistake. I kind of still regret that to this day. Because if I could still have that interaction that I got from that Twitter account nowadays associated with 9 to 5 sports, that'd be huge, guys. That'd be huge. And the part of the reason why is because I was starting to get a lot of people reaching out to me wanting to, I don't want to say like sponsored posts, but reaching out to me for content, for all that stuff. And just giving up on that was a mistake. Now, also a slight mistake, I think, is when I had made that switch, we did see an individualized approach to fantasy sports. Whereas when I got into the industry, it was a lot of big names, companies and whatnot. If I could go back in time, when I did the 9 to 5 switch, although a freaking awesome name, 9 to 5 sports, I mean, come on, I probably would have went with like Eric Polzin, just, my first and last name, and that'd be it. Because we are seeing now, especially with the growth of like gaming as well, people are becoming their own brand. Okay. That is social media nowadays. So that is another kind of misstep I took, is that go off of your name right away. Because if you try to switch down the line, and if this is something you want to do career-wise, that's the biggest thing you can do, is have your name out there. Because whether you know it or not, that's going to matter down the line. Okay, that was definitely a mistake that I made. Another mistake that I think I kind of made is I really haven't networked at all. Okay. And that literally comes down to time management. And that also comes down to me wanting to put out the best content and information I can possible. And with that, I don't have the time to really network too much. Okay. And that is kind of a problem. That also goes back to Eric Polzin as a brand versus 9 to 5 Sports as a brand. It doesn't really make sense for people to reach out to 9 to 5 for networking, because competition wise, doesn't really make sense for them to reach out to Eric Polzin to network with, to have on their shows. Makes a lot more sense because I am an individual in that sense. Okay. Whereas if you have 9 to 5 Sports on, you're kind of having the competition on there. So it doesn't really make sense, you know? And then, like, I would say another thing that I would do differently is when it comes to putting out content or really anything, you need to be consistent with it and commit to it. Timing is everything. And so you need to nail down a schedule. And kind of where I'm referencing is that I had a very strong growth in golf, especially when it came to like putting out articles and write-ups attached with my video. So when I would attach my video to that write-up that was also getting a lot of clicks, that video would then also get a lot of views, which then it kind of went hand in hand. The write-up was huge on like Twitter and stuff. And then the video would then get a lot of clicks. And then because of that, YouTube would sense it as a video that's getting a lot of views, and thus people would click it more on YouTube. It kind of is mutually beneficial. And then just due to time constraints, when it came to, I try to do NBA DFS, I try to do NFL DFS, I try to do PGA DFS. I try to do too much at once to the point where I couldn't do stuff that I kind of needed to grow. And that was one of them, was kind of that core plays write-up is kind of what I would do. Got a lot of love and it helped the videos out a lot. Messed up there. And the biggest thing you're probably wondering is like, well, why don't you go back and do all that stuff? Well, a few things. Time management for sure. And all that stuff took time to build up to the point to where it was. And then you kind of got to prioritize stuff. Like right now, my priorities are my database management for golf, and then putting out the best content possible once again. Okay, consistency. I am finally at a consistent point with my content to the point where people will see a video and they'll click on it right away. That is growth that I've been waiting for a while, and I need to continue. Okay. So like my last piece of advice is when you finally find your niche, keep at it. Like that's personally probably my biggest issue, is that when I finally accomplish something, I accomplish it. And then I'm like, all right, what's the next thing? No, it needs to be accomplish it. How do I keep growing on this?